Hey guys, today's video will be a tutorial on creating a basic top. We'll be needing both our basic bodice pattern and our basic sleeve pattern when creating it. I'll be going over our materials and equipment needed first, and then I'll continue going on about how to create the actual top. Okay guys, these are the things we need. Front and back basic bodice patterns. Basic sleeve pattern. 1.5 meters of your fabric, preferably a cotton jersey or anything with a stretch. Regular fabric shears if you have an overlocker, or pinking shears if you don't. Pins, tailor's chalk, sewing machine and an overlocker if you have one. First we're going to mark out the grain line on our patterns by measuring 4 centimeters from the center fold edge, anywhere along the edge a few times, and then connect the dots. We'll label that as our grain line. Then again from that edge, we're going to draw a line perpendicular from the grain line and label that as our stretch. You'll do the same with the other 2 basic patterns. Now we're going to figure out the stretch of our fabric versus the non-stretch of our fabric. Mine stretches along the horizontal lines. Lay out your fabric flat. Place the front pattern so the grain line is parallel to the non-stretch way of your fabric. Now pin your pattern down onto the fabric. Make sure there is enough room for seam allowance, which is 1.25 centimeters or half an inch. Next, using the tailor's chalk, draw a line around the pattern 1.25 centimeters or half an inch away from the pattern for seam allowance. Don't add seam allowance to the armholes or collar, and don't forget the shoulders. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Next to your front pattern, lay out your back pattern, keeping the grain line in mind. Repeat the process of pinning, adding seam allowance, while leaving out the armhole and collar. Don't forget the shoulders. Next, with your fabric shears, cut around your pattern. Cut exactly against the pattern where the armhole is, as well as the collar. For the rest, cut on the tailor's chalk line. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Next, lay out your fabric flat again and lay your sleeve pattern like so. Figure out how much you'll need and fold across, leaving enough around for seam allowance. Following your grain and stretch line, pin your sleeve pattern to the fabric. With the tailor's chalk, mark a 1.25 centimeters or half inch seam allowance around the pattern, except the armhole curve, and a 2 centimeter seam allowance on the arm round line. Cut the 2 layers of fabric along the tailor's chalk line, remembering to cut along the armhole curve exactly with the pattern. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Now lay out the bodice fabric pieces on top of each other, right sides together, and pin the shoulder lines together. The stitch width we'll be using on our sewing machine will be 2.5. With a straight stitch, I'm going to sew along, back tacking a few stitches after I start and finish. Remove pins and clip away any excess thread. Do the same with the other shoulder. And this is what it should look like when you're done. Now we overlock the seams. This is what it should look like when you're done. Next we unpin the sleeve pattern from the fabric pieces. The wave is the front side of the sleeve and the curve is the back. The front has a lower collar while the back has a higher collar. We'll be opening the bodice pattern and pinning the shoulder seam to the back on both sides from the right side. We're going to align the front of the sleeve to the front armhole, right sides together. Now pin the center of the sleeve pattern to the armhole center of the shoulder seam, and then pin the end points and play around until it sits properly pinned. Do the same to the other sleeve pattern. Now at the sewing machine, we'll sew along the armhole seam with a 1/2 inch or 1.25 centimeter seam allowance, back tacking where we start and end, and we'll do the same for the other side. And then we'll overlock the seam as well as the arm round edge. Fold the arm round edge 1 centimeter in and sew along with the needle center the overlocking. Snip off the excess thread, and this is what it should look like when you're done. Now turn the top inside out and pin the sides together. The easiest way would be to pin the major points together first, such as the underarm point, the wrist, waist point, and bottom edge of the top. Do the same to both sides. Then back at the sewing machine with a 1.25 centimeter or 1/2 inch seam allowance, sew along the side from wrist to hip, back tacking where you start and end, and do the same to the other side. Now back to the overlocker, overlock the seam on both sides. Now the garment looks nearly done. We'll overlock the bottom edge of the top and collar, clipping off excess thread. Last but not least, we fold the overlocked bottom edge in 1 centimeter and sew along with the needle going through the center of the overlocking. and clip away any excess thread. Do the same for the overlocked collar and snip off the excess thread. Turn your top inside out and voila! And this is what it should look like when you're done. And that's how you create a basic top using both the basic bodice pattern and basic sleeve pattern. Thank you for watching, and our next video will be by per request of Mr. Charlie's Angel. It'll be a pattern manipulation tutorial on creating a plain sheath dress. If you have any requests or questions, please leave them in the comments section below, and take time, if you can, please, to like this video and subscribe to us, precious. Bye.